Welcome back to the faculty podcast of the Department of Astrological Studies. I am Dr. Helios Voss. Today we turn to Sagittarius, the mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter. We will treat it not as the cheerful optimist of popular astrology, but as a structural principle of meaning, expansion, and the restless pursuit of the horizon. Joining me again are Professor Luna Astara, Dr. Orion Quill, Dr. Celeste Ria, and Professor Kepler Sol. Luna, begin with the classical form.
Sagittarius is mutable fire, the only fire sign that is neither initiating nor fixed. It does not start the blaze nor hold the hearth, it carries the flame outward. The centaur is the key image, the animal body of the horse fused with the aiming intelligence of the human. This is not a peaceful hybrid. It is a creature in permanent tension between instinct and aspiration, between the drive to move and the need to aim. Jupiter, its ruler, is the planet of expansion, coherence, and the search for overarching patterns. In the Hellenistic framework, Sagittarius governs the ninth place, the place of the god, of foreign travel, of higher knowledge, and of the law that claims universal validity. Its efficiency lies in the production of meaning systems large enough to orient a life or a culture.
And that is precisely where the danger begins. Sagittarius has a historical talent for universalizing its own particular perspective. The archer aims at truth, but the arrow often carries the cultural assumptions of the archer. In the history of ideas, Sagittarian energy has fueled both genuine philosophical breakthroughs and the colonial project of mapping the world according to one civilization's categories. Postmodern critique is essential here. When Sagittarius declares this is the truth, we must ask whose truth, from which location, under what power relations. The sign's gift for vision can become the ideology of the explorer who never questions the right to explore.
Psychologically, the Sagittarian wound is often the early experience that the immediate environment, family, culture, or belief system is too small. The soul reaches for a larger capital. The compensatory strategy is perpetual motion. More travel, more study, more spiritual systems, more future plans. The shadow appears as restlessness that never allows the present to be enough, or as moral certainty that cannot tolerate ambiguity. The evolutionary task is not to stop seeking, but to learn the difference between expansion that liberates and expansion that is flight. The centaur must eventually stop running long enough to feel the animal body it is trying to transcend.
In timing techniques, Sagittarius periods are distinctive. When the annual perfection lands in Sagittarius, Jupiter becomes the Time Lord. These years statistically correlate with increased geographic mobility, educational commitments, legal matters, and encounters with foreign or philosophical frameworks. Zodiacal releasing periods through Sagittarius often mark phases of ideological reorientation or the pursuit of a larger life narrative. However, the same periods also show elevated rates of overcommitment, ideological conflict, and the collapse of overly optimistic plans. Jupiter expands whatever it touches, including errors of judgment. The data suggests that Sagittarian timing rewards those who have already done the Capricornian work of building adequate foundations.
Medical astrology places Sagittarius over the hips, thighs, liver, and the sciatic nerve, the structures that allow the body to stride forward and the organ that processes excess. Jupiterian conditions include inflammation from overindulgence, hepatic stress, and the restless inability to remain still. The ancient physicians associated Jupiter with the sanguine temperament, warm, moist, expansive, and prone to excess when unbalanced. The remedy was never to extinguish the fire, but to give it a worthy target and sufficient structure so that expansion did not become dissipation.
Consider the mundane dimension. Nations with strong Sagittarius signatures often exhibit a pronounced ideological or religious self-understanding, a tendency toward expansionist policy, or a cultural emphasis on higher education and legal systems that claim universal principles. The danger is the confusion of one culture's horizon with the horizon itself. A rigorous Sagittarian analysis must therefore include the capacity for self-critique, the willingness to question whether the arrow is aimed at truth or at the confirmation of existing power.
In practice, when Sagittarius is strong in a chart, I listen for the quality of the native's relationship to meaning. Is the search for truth a living inquiry, or has it hardened into a portable ideology that protects the person from uncertainty? The most mature Sagittarian expression I encounter is not the person who has found the answer, but the one who has learned to travel with questions that remain alive. The archer still aims, but no longer confuses the target with the totality of the sky.
Let us examine the polarity. Sagittarius stands opposite Gemini. Where Gemini multiplies perspectives and plays with information, Sagittarius seeks the coherent narrative that can hold multiplicity without dissolving into relativism. Luna, how do you teach this axis?
The Gemini Sagittarius axis is the problem of knowledge itself. Gemini gathers, Sagittarius organizes into worldview. Without Gemini, Sagittarius becomes dogma. Without Sagittarius, Gemini becomes endless distraction. In a chart, the condition of Mercury and Jupiter, and the houses they rule, tells us whether the native can move fluidly between detail and pattern, between the local and the universal. The healthiest expressions hold both the capacity to change one's mind when new information arrives, and the courage to commit to a direction long enough for it to bear fruit.
Technically, when timing activates one end of the axis, the other is simultaneously stimulated by opposition. A Sagittarius perfection year will often bring Gemini topics into high relief: siblings, local networks, short journeys, or the need to communicate the larger vision in accessible language. The data shows that successful Sagittarian expansions frequently depend on Gemini skills, the ability to translate the big idea into speech, writing, or teaching that others can actually use.
Which returns us to ethics. Sagittarius, at its best, is the philosopher who remains a student. At its worst, it is the missionary who cannot imagine that another culture's map of the sacred might be equally coherent. The advanced practitioner must therefore cultivate what I would call epistemic humility, the Sagittarian virtue of aiming high while remembering that the arrow is always launched from a particular body in a particular time under particular conditions of power.
A practical synthesis for students, when you encounter strong Sagittarius, begin with the question of horizon. What is this person or this culture reaching toward? What meaning system is being constructed or defended? Examine Jupiter's condition, the ninth house, and the state of the Gemini polarity. Then ask whether the expansion serves life or merely inflates the ego's need to be right. Technique first, then the living inquiry. That is how Sagittarius itself would want to be studied, always in motion, always aiming, never finally arrived.
Beautifully said. Sagittarius, then, is the principle by which consciousness reaches beyond its immediate conditions in search of a larger coherence. Its genius is vision. Its risk is the confusion of vision with possession of the truth. Our task is to keep the arrow flying without pretending we have already hit the final mark. Thank you to my colleagues. This has been the Faculty Podcast. We continue our series on the signs as structural principles of the psyche and the world.